Hello, everybody. I hope you all are back in front of your screens because we are beginning with our next session by Chennai chapter. It's about value delivery in complex systems, and we have Ram Kumar, who is a senior manager at Swiggy, sharing his insights about this topic. And with that, I would like to call upon Rohit Joshi, who is going to facilitate this session, and I would like to call Ram Kumar on the webcam and microphone. Over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Nupur. And much obliged to Agile Network India. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Rohit Joshi. I'm a functional and an Agile business analyst, and today I'm a facilitator of the event. Very excited and eager for today's session. And topic for the today is value delivery in complex systems. And our speaker is Mr. Ramkumar Armugam. Ramu Kumar is a seasoned delivery leader offering 17 plus years of experience in IT portfolio program and program management. He holds an impressive track record of leading all phases of diverse and complex technology IT programs in supply chain, logistics, e-commerce, merchandising, insurance, and pharmaceutical market research industries. He has presented in various national conferences sponsored by PMI, Scrum Alliance, and Lean Kanban. He has a zeal for teaching and has facilitated many agile trainings and framework and methodologies including Scrum, Extreme Programming, Kanban, with exceptional feedback. I hope we will find many informative insights from the session. Welcome, Ramkumar. Over to you.
Hey, thanks, Jail Network India and Rohit Mukul for the introduction. Without further ado, we'll just get started. So the agenda of the session is going to be around how do you deliver value in complex systems that you probably see in different aspects in the software industry. So there are different types of systems that you probably work on in your software industry career, ranging from simple, medium, complex, or complicated systems. So the approach that you take for building each of those systems are going to be a little different. Say, for example, if it is a simple system, what are the different SDLC process that you follow? Maybe like a 3 to 6 months project or a program that you run on. Or if it is a medium-sized project or program, it's less complex, and what are the thought process that you will have? So those most of us have seen, right? So building a complex systems requires a different mindset altogether. So before you understand what it takes to build a complex system, how do you deliver value out of it? Let's understand what a complex system means in the first place, right? Complex, I'll probably walk you through with the difference between complex and complicated, because that's where we'll see a lot of, a fine line between how do you define a complex versus complicated. Simple, we all know how the system looks like. We can always build a simple systems through a standard operating procedure or from a past experience, right? So which we have seen in the industry or in your own organization. But how do you build a complicated and a complex system? There is a lot of difference between these two systems, and we'll more focus on building a complex systems in any organization. Right? So what is a complex system? So I'll spend a lot of time in helping you understand how complex system is built or how complex system will behave in an IT industry, right? So first, complex systems are not straightforward. So if you see the diagram on the left, there are a lot of components that are interacting with each other, and there is no hierarchical relationship, which means hierarchical relationship meaning there is no top down always, right? From always the flow starts from A to B, B to C, C to D. So it will have different types of combinations. You will see a lot of a system will interact itself together, right? So if you see all of these dotted lines, the system will talk to each other in certain aspects, and it's going to talk to different other components in the system. And the relationship is not straightforward. It's always complex, right? You have n number of entities that are talking to each other, and relationships and interactions that happen between each of them, right? So examples of complex systems, say for example, if I have to take a real world example rather than an IT example, is like building a relationship or playing chess. So building relationship, for example, if you are consider an example that you are very good at building relationship. Let's say you make a lot of friends along the way. So let's say you made friends with the ABC. Doesn't mean that you perfected the relationship that you can always make friends with person D, E, F, because every one of us, we have our own ecosystem of families, friends, and others, right? So there is no defined rules that in a complex system that you master a set of rules A, B, C, you will always envision success, right? Because relationship is complex, be it anything, right? Raising a child or building a relationship with your colleagues, friends, families, right? It's always difficult because it is just not that person alone. That person will have a relationship with their family, like I said, their friends. At any given time, you're going to see thousands of factors affecting your relationship at any given moment. So that's why building a relationship is so complex, and nobody can master it. Nobody can give a framework or write some rules about relationship, and this you follow these relationships rules, and then you become successful in your life. Similarly, playing chess. Hey, playing chess is really complex because as you make every move in the chessboard, there are going to be millions and millions of combinations that will probably come into picture from the other opponent. Similarly, the other opponent makes the move, your combination of move increases exponentially. So that is what a complex system looks like, because the factors or the variables that you're going to see it in the system is going to be extremely difficult, and it's going to have relationship with other entities. So I will take a Cenefin model. I mean, you would have seen the Cenefin model with every walks of life in the IT industry, right? I will use the Cenefin model to explain what is a complicated and a complex system. So complicated system, if you take, for example, building an airplane is a complicated system, or building an internal combustion engine, building an automobile is a complex. So how do you differentiate between complex and complicated? Say, for example, if it is a complicated, so let's say if you are trying to build an airplane or trying to build an internal combustion engine, you always know what are the fixed number of inputs and the fixed number of outputs. So the inputs are always constant. Even if you increase the inputs by X number of factors, or increase so many number of inputs, you'll always get a standard output. Say, for example, how do you measure an internal combustion? You can always measure in terms of efficiency, your carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide levels, your sulfur levels, and you have set parameters for all of those internal combustion engines. And similar to your airplane. So as you build components, you can build components of these automobile or airplanes in components. You can build these in blocks, and then because each of these blocks will have set of inputs and set of outputs, and you can join all of these blocks together, and then you can form a whole system. And the way that you can perfect a complicated system is, as you try to build your complicated systems, you can start writing formulas, right? You can start probably standardizing formulas, write some formulas, methods, process, procedures. And if you say Boeing, if you take a aircraft manufacturing company like Boeing or Airbus, right? They definitely have a standard operating procedure of about how do you build certain components. So it's, you can come have somebody train, maybe put them in a job for about 6-7 months and have them build that component, because they have the knowledge and they know the formula and they know the mechanism to build a, say for example, even a landing gear, for example, right? So landing gear is probably, they have not made a lot of innovation in landing gear. It is complicated, but they have already perfected it. All of the aircraft manufacturers, right? Be Gulfstream, Boeing, Airbus. But let's say if you're trying to build an e-commerce website for now, and it's very difficult, right, to envision how do you want to have a e-commerce website look like. You can definitely, yes, get inspired from Amazon, Flipkart, or all the other e-commerce sites, and you can build your own e-commerce. But the number of components that will get involved in your e-commerce systems are going to be extremely vast. Say, for example, it involves a logistics department, it involves supply chain, it involves procurement. Right? All of these different aspects will have a number of relationships with outside world. So you will not know how these relationships will affect your e-commerce business, right? Let's say the supplier has gone out of business today, and assuming that you will always get a procurement from a supplier A, and that supplier has gone out of business, then your supply chain is broke, right? So it's always, you cannot always predict what can happen in an entire supply chain. COVID is just a great example, right? If you've seen, so you've seen a lot of ships getting held up in the sea, and they are not able to dock into the ports, because of which we are not getting products on time. And we're already seeing that you're going to see a lot of empty shelves in all of the western regions during Christmas and New Year, right? So it's extremely difficult to predict what can go wrong in a complex system. Complicated systems, like I said, you have set of inputs and you always have a set of outputs Y. So the degree of certainty, the outputs that you expect out of a complicated system is highly predictable. So you cannot expect a radically different output in a combustion engine unless you have some formula that has gone really wrong, right? So otherwise, if you keep following all the formulas, the set operating procedures, you can always predict an outcome of all of these complicated systems. But here in complex system, it's extremely difficult, because it is very difficult to envision the end state, right? So nobody has, even Mark Zuckerberg wouldn't have envisioned Facebook as of now, right? When he started building a Facebook, he probably started building to network with this college group. He's never intended to unleash this to the entire world. So it is extremely difficult to envision what is going to be the end state of a complex system unless you start building it and then start walking through the chain of events that's going to follow the complex systems, right? And like I said, you always have formulas, set procedures, that you can document once you build a complicated system, and then use that to perfect your design. And then everything that you follow on the complex system is going to be on those standard set of formulas, procedures, protocols, things like that. And those are some of your success factors, right? So when you perfect that, the chances of success are extremely high in a complicated system. Here, you cannot always apply a standard formula because, like I said, the relationships and the dependencies on complex systems are extremely, I would say, difficult, right, to predict the outcome. So when you start building the complex systems initially, maybe during the initial days, depending on the nature of your program, the outcome is going to be extremely difficult to envision. And I mean, you cannot always guarantee that your the entire complex system will be a success unless you navigate certain charters. Right here, like I said, complicated system you can build part by part, right? Just like how we build an aircraft or build an automobile, all of these parts can be built separately and it can be assembled together to create a fully functional system. But here you cannot do like that because the whole, let's say if you take an entire e-commerce business, which we all aware, so buying a product is a lot more greater than the individual components of within the e-commerce business, right? Because that's what is eventually everybody likes. Because let's say you build procurement perfectly, you build your supply chain perfectly, you build your warehouse perfectly, stores perfectly. That doesn't mean that all of these functions are put together. You will see a greater outcome because things can go wrong anywhere inside of this supply chain. But eventually, what is bigger? Customer buying a product from your e-commerce site, that is what is bigger than all of these components put together. Because if customers are not buying, even though you build your efficient components inside your complex system, it's of no use, right? That's why building a complex system is extremely difficult these days, and especially when it comes to knowledge work, right? So the programs or projects that we run inside your own organization that runs for about like 3-4 years, be it building a new financial product suite or building a Paytm wallet kind of stuff, it is extremely difficult to envision in the first place because nobody knows unless you probably walk through maybe a couple of stages in building those systems. Only then you will understand, okay, what are the type of features that you want, what are the type of features that customers will buy. So that's why the whole is always greater than the sum of its components. So what are some, now let's move on, what are the challenges associated with these complex systems? Like I said, there are a lot of unknown unknowns. There is no way that you can ascertain the degree of outcome during the initial phases. Unknowns are something like, I mean, it is something that you don't know that it exists in the first place itself. So unless you build something like that, you get feedback from the ground, or you understand from your industry peers or what is happening around the industry in e-commerce world, it's extremely difficult for you to understand what are some of those X factors that are influencing the complex systems. And it is very difficult to model because complex systems are similar to your neural patterns, right? You do not have any, even now, there is no system that exists to model your human brain. The human brain is more complex. I mean, you can have n number of models that can simulate your brain functions, but still you cannot predict the outcome because there are so many different types of neural complexity that is present in your human brain. Similar to that, all of these supply chain, even Amazon has not perfected it. There's no simulation, right? Just like a weather simulation, you can do a prediction of how much products I can. Though Amazon has perfected over a very longer period of time, they still do not have, I would say, end-to-end simulation of their supply chain or their e-commerce business, right? It's very difficult to build such models unless until you have one person who can understand the chain end-to-end, right? Like I said, there's no hierarchical relationship in complex systems. Like the relationship that you see on the left, right? It is like straightforward, right? From top to bottom, from left to right, right? They are like homogeneous relationships sometimes. Component A, which is similar to component B, will relate to each other, and that's how the flow happens in a complicated systems. And in a complex system, homogeneous and heterogeneous components interact with each other. So that's the difference between complicated and complex systems. So it is chaotic, right? So that is why it is very difficult to predict the outcomes in the beginning stages of building your complex systems, like building a Paytm wallet, similar to a Paytm wallet, or building a supply chain, or building a last mile delivery for that fact, right? All of those things are extremely difficult because so many number of parameters involved. Let's say if you are building a last mile delivery, you have to have a in India, for example, let's say India as an example. So you have transportation challenges, you have logistics challenges, you have a supply demand gap because you will not get so many trucks or drivers because out of streets, some of the streets are narrow, so you're going to have smaller vehicles. So there's so many different components involved in terms of doing a last mile delivery. Even if you have, let's say, for example, Swiggy or Zomato, that they do delivery through vehicles, sometimes you see a lot of gap in supply have drivers available. Sometimes you have rains, right? Unpredictable. And you have strikes, and you have bunds, hartals called by government, right? During some days. So these are some of those factors that's going to affect your systems one way or another. So it is extremely difficult to get these signals to perfect your complex systems to predict outcomes. So that's why building complex systems is extremely difficult. I'll go back here. So if you look at the Cynefin model, so if you see the complicated and complex is where most of the projects will lie in our organization, right? So how do you build a complicated systems? Like I said, so you make judgments based on your past, right? So judgmental decision making is you've done a lot of projects like this in the past, then it becomes easy for you to predict, okay, this is how the complicated systems will behave. These are the formulas, these are the procedures, policies that you can probably go and adapt. So complex systems generally starts in the chaotic environment first, right? Because you will never know what to do. You run probably like 2-3 sprints, innovation sprints to quickly figure out what is that you want to build in a market. So because right now if the product exists or not, you're trying to do a market fit, you're trying to find out if the customers are going to really buy your product or not. It's going to be initially chaotic, right? So chaotic is the places where you probably begin experimenting, right? But chaotic environment you cannot be in for a very longer time because it takes away all of your energy, and a lot of those innovation, right, happens in the chaotic environment. You'll have to take those innovation and then quickly move to the complex environment, right? You cannot be in a chaotic environment for a very long period of time. Radical innovation happens in chaotic environment, right? That's when you figure out, okay, what happens, right? And then quickly come back to the complex environment. You do a lot of innovation, and then you create some hypothesis out of your innovation, and then put some standard practice. Do a trial and error, right? Whether this will work or not, and then as and when things go wrong, or as and when you want to pivot, you quickly go to the chaotic environment, do a pivot, and then come back and then start building products, right? So that's how innovation happens. Innovation happens mostly in the chaotic environment, right? So I take a typical example. Let's say you're on the middle of a sea, and then there's a hole in the boat. You're probably driving in or riding in a yacht, and suddenly there is a hole in the boat. So that right now, whatever you've enjoyed so far now become chaotic, right? So your utmost priority is to probably fill that hole so that the water doesn't sink in right into the boat. So that environment is chaotic, but you cannot be in that environment for a very long time. So you'll have to quickly figure out, patch the hole and come back, and then you start probably enjoying, and then in a deep sea, right? And you do go deep sea fishing, or probably do scuba diving, things like that. So that's how you'll have to envision, or you'll have to think about the chaotic and complex. So what is the solution? So when you try to build complex systems that span for about 2-3 years in any organization, is there a solution, or is there a standard set of procedures that you can follow? Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet, or there's no one t-shirt that can fit all of the complex systems now. But based on what I have understood in executing large programs over the past 10 years, some of the tips and tricks of trade is what probably I'll understand. So this probably may or may not help you, because like I said, it's complex systems are very difficult to emulate, model their behaviors, but you can definitely take some examples out of this and try and apply in your workplace, right? The first step in understanding a complex system is to establish context, right? But when you look at, say, for example, building an e-commerce system, so building e-commerce system looks like this, right? All of these are different components, so none of these components are alike, right? First, you need to understand what your, let's say you should be on a customer shoes, and then put a customer lens and view how exactly a customer will view your product, right? So that's the first time that you should take. And second, you should probably understand what are some of those problem statements that you can make out of the customer lens, right? So all of these components are heterogeneous, right? None of these are homogeneous. There will be few homogeneous components, and most of it is all heterogeneous components, right? So this is what you need to understand first, is to understand the context. So you will have to establish a context in the complex systems. So once you understand the context, and you can start drafting problem statements for all of, and you'll have to probably split, because a complex system is, you cannot solve using a single problem, right? There will be multiple problems. Say, for example, in the banking side, there are thousands of problems associated with, say, for example, opening a checking account, you're probably dispersing your loans, issuing a credit card, right? So all of these are like heterogeneous components. So you'll have to envision all of these heterogeneous components, understand the context behind them, and the relationship. Because though credit card, issuing a credit card looks to be an individual component, when you go and apply for a credit card, I mean, irrespectively, they are going to check your bank balance, right? Your current account or a savings account. They're going to check your CIBIL score. They're going to check your probably how confident are you in terms of paying your credit cards on time. Do you have any past history, things like that. So all of those things will come into play, right? Let's say even if you are applying in the same bank where you hold your savings or current account. So things like that, similar to e-commerce. So these are components of an e-commerce portal: logistics, transportation. You have an e-commerce portal. You have procurement. You have supply chain. You have warehouse management. You have store operations, retail operations, like that. So all of these are different components. So you have to understand how these components behave in a certain contextual way, right? Add multiple dimensions to it, and like I said, all of these components are interdependent. Like I said, so credit card is linked to your savings account, it links to your CIBIL score, it's linked to your bank, right? It's linked to your probably some of the trade unions, right? Sorry, credit unions in one way or other. So all of these components will have interdependencies with multiple systems coming into place, right? And then finally, you have to synthesize what is your, once you identify a problem statement, and then you have to start synthesizing. Synthesizing meaning, so you have to probably go a level deep into what is the problem statement and how do you want to probably validate the problem statement, right? So a typical example that I probably say in every seminars or every conferences that I go is Redbus, right? Redbus started in way back in 2005. So the founders understood there's a problem in terms of getting a bus, right, during festival seasons, because all during festival seasons most of the buses are packed and it is very difficult to get a tickets. So they started aggregating. Okay, that's when the aggregation idea started. So when they first built the website, right? So what did they do? So they understood the problem. Okay, this is the problem. So how do you want to synthesize, get validation out of it? They did not build the entire Redbus in just a single day. So they understood the problem and they know there are a lot of components associated with it. So they took a one simple component. They just built a simple HTML page, a static HTML page with the hit counters. And then they listed only the tour operators from and to, the contact numbers, and the departure date and time. That's it. So they built a static page like this. They started opening their website for the public, and then started measuring the hit rates. So as more and more people started working or looking at that website, they understood, okay, this problem exists, right? Only then started building on the second stage, maybe the MVP2 or probably the phase 2 or phase 3 of it. So that's how all of the journey starts for all of the products that we see on the market. So during the initial stages of it, you should understand the problem exists first in the market. Quickly, you'll have to go back and validate it. So synthesize the problem and then quickly figure out a way how do you want to validate it quickly, because building an entire Redbus out of it and then getting nothing out of it is really a waste of time and money, right? So you'll have to quickly evaluate and then come out of the validation or the assumptions, right? Come out of your assumptions. Then what you do, then you start grouping certain related components together from your context. Once you establish context, you know what are the similar components that you see in the entire programs or the products that you want to build, right? So you group all of them, and then now you start to see, okay, these are the components that will probably talk to each other. Again, still the advantage of grouping these together is to streamline some of the relationships and dependencies between a homogeneous and heterogeneous components, right? So homogeneous components that you can take separately and then start building it, and then you can come back and then start integrating with your heterogeneous components too in your complex systems. So group problem by domain. So you take an e-commerce, you have an e-commerce portal, you can group it by warehousing. Like I said, you can group it by retail outlets, group it by your suppliers, you group it by procurement management. So all of these are the components, right? You're going to have, again, n number of components within your transportation. You have transportation, you have first mile, middle mile, last mile, right? So all of these are homogeneous components within transportations. So that's how you group and then create a domain or a function altogether. And then you're going to start. Now the transportation can be taken separately, and then you can model transportation and then come back to your complex systems and then start identifying what are the interdependencies again with all of the other systems, right? So it becomes very easy for you to probably dissect the problem and then start iterating efficiently and then come back for heterogeneous integration. And then finally, you can do a design and roadmap of how do you want to do it. So should we probably like just a Redbus? Should we probably just display your current account or maybe a wallet alone, right, in WhatsApp? Let's say if you want to build a bank and then you're just saying, I'll just do WhatsApp integration, and whenever customer asks for a current balance, that's the first thing that I'll build. So when you say current balance, it's going to give you a current balance account. So that's the only thing that I'll do first time. So that's how you develop a roadmap for execution using a very simple MVP. I would say even a lesser than MVP, right? And then quickly validate, okay, somebody is really using it or not. Before you go build some complex products of integrating with WhatsApp, with your banks, WhatsApp with all of the other components, right? With all of the other e-commerce portals. So what do you do? So the next step is the ideation, right? So once you have the context, relationship discoveries, relationship and dependencies, interdependencies established, now you go back to the drawing board and start charting your product canvas. So this is where I said, okay, you take some of the components. If it is just an e-commerce portal, if it is just an e-commerce portal, you can start with a customer-facing component because that's where you wanted to validate all of your ideas, right? So you could maybe you can first journey could be simply displaying your catalogs, right? Catalogs on the e-commerce portal and see people are browsing your catalog. If people are browsing your catalogs, next is you can start building your checkout process. So checkout process, and similarly, you can start building all of your backend components, your supply chain components, your transportation components, things like that. That can come into the phase 2 or phase 3 or phase 4. So that's how all of these e-commerce players have built their journey, right? And you always have a broad set of themes, and then themes like your e-commerce journey, and then your checkout, you're going to have your catalog, and then all of the backend components built, your supply chain components built. All of these are broad themes in your product canvas. And of course, you need to support all of your functional expertise with the architecture in underlying architecture, right? So you take separate time out of it to build the architecture also that can support your broader set of things, because architecture plays a crucial role in terms of giving stability to complex systems, right? If somewhere some of those things broke, then it's going to be extremely difficult for you to probably have a very good customer experience, right? So if let's say if your transportation is broke, you probably will not be able to deliver products on time, right? Deliver goods on time. So let's say every time you go and order on Amazon, it says that it gets delivered tomorrow 9 p.m. How do they do that? Because they perfected transportation model, and now they can for sure tell that okay, their underlying architecture is also great and it's scalable architecture, and they can commit to a certain SLA, right? It, as they say, it gets delivered tomorrow 9 p.m. It gets delivered before 9 p.m. Right? And then the third step or fourth step is what you probably review the board, the broad teams with your product management, your engineering team, your business, marketing, sales, right? And figure out what is the scope for MVP. So MVP is something like a extremely very small validation that you do face by face. So whether somebody is going to probably use your product, somebody is going to like your product, or is it really a market fit? Are you identifying a right problem? Are you in a right market to address things like that? All of those things will come into your MVP. It's just not that product being used by your customers. It's like, are you in the right time? Right content is what is being shared to the customer, consumers, things like that. And then you go for internal show and tell. Let's call a demo with your entire management, marketing, sales, and team, and figure out if this is what we are going to launch the first phase or an MVP. And then once that is done, then you go ahead and launch your MVP, get validations from the market, and then you proceed for the next iteration. So this typically the ideation and discovery that you see in all your projects and programs. There's nothing different, but the only thing here is the first thing is you'll have to, like I said, dissect all the complex relationships that you have. Take the most important one that you want to probably iterate, right? So that is going to deliver value to your customers. Even though you're going to have a lot of components outside, but the first thing that I would always say is look at all of your components and see what is closer to your customer, even if it is a complex system, and then give it MVP and then iterate on top of it, right? So it's not that if it's a banking system, let's say I'll go ahead and build, for example, all the databases related to my consumers first without giving anything, right, on a website. So building those kind of things will probably not do justice to you as well as to the consumers. So another important aspect here is hybrid road mapping. So what I mean by hybrid road mapping is you always take a inside out view and an outside in view, right? So inside out view is something like when you build complex system, you have a thirst for building something novel, like you building a Paytm wallet or building I would say a supply chain systems. So what, like in the previous slides, you put all of these things that you want the green box, right, together on a single box, and then whether it is aligned to your corporate strategy vision, and then you get an inside out view. You start building things from inside out, right, within your organization without having any insights on if this complex system has been built from outside or this is completely that you're building something novel, right? Then it depends on whole lot of things like your market drivers, what is the value that you deliver. All of these things are built inside out, right? You do not have any knowledge about the external world and till the MVP phase, right? So that's how you, because that program or that project or a system is aligned to your vision, business strategy, you go ahead and build it for your customer. And then you put that on a product roadmap and start building it. But on the other hand, when you start building complex systems, you always take an outside in view. The reason is whether will there be any feedback from your ground. Say for example, the reason, a classic example that I can pick and tell you is, let's say you are building a, what is your USP, right? Let's say if you're building an e-commerce system, a checkout is one aspect of it, right? So you don't have to really go ahead and build a checkout system for an e-commerce, because there are a lot of players outside the industry, in the industry, who has perfected the checkout system, right? You can always draw inspirations and go ahead and understand how they have built this checkout system and start building it, rather than building the knowledge inside, because you're going to drain a lot of your energy in building something which there is no USP for you. I mean, that's not your USP, right? If it's not your USP, don't go ahead and spend a lot of time and energy in building it. That's more important. So you always take inspirations from the industry, or even probably partner with your the vendors, right? Like you have Razorpay, you have JustPay. All of these are wallet vendors. You can go ahead and do an integration rather than building it, because that's not your core, I would say, USP, right? Here in building a company, especially with respect to e-commerce, unless you wanted to revolutionize the way people check out, revolutionize the way people are paying through your checkout, be it credit card, wallet, or something. You don't spend your time and energy there. You take an outside in view, you plug it inside your system, and then start building it. So that's what is the blue box, right? So you can always take insights from a red or blue ocean, whether you want to attack an existing market or you want to go to a niche market altogether. Are there any products available in the market that can probably help draw inspirations? Let's say if you are building a supplier master table, there's Oracle JDA has, Oracle has it, SAP has it. So many different vendors have built all of those supplier management. So why don't you want to go ahead and probably take those learnings from the industry, start building it? It's going to reduce your time, right? Similarly, process. So all of those things you probably take an outside in view, and then you start building into your product. Because the reason that if you don't get an outside in view, you're going to spend a lot of time here in building a top-down view, and it's going to take a lot of time in building a product and ship the product out. So that is why you'll always take an outside in view. That's going to reduce your development time. And this impact mapping is something that everybody knows, right? So as you probably start ideating and iterating, so you probably put all of these problem statements and goals that you wanted to have it in each of those. The impact mapping sheet. From the roadmap, the hybrid road mapping, you start putting together all of these, the goals that you want to achieve in each of those systems that you want to build, right? And everywhere you wanted to always take the shortest path to deliver the maximum impact, because which is impact is nothing but your value, right? So that is what you wanted to build, the quickest way to validate your idea in each of those journey along, right? That's more important. And finally, when it comes to value delivery, so how do you deliver value? So you cannot start delivering value in a complex system on day one, because it takes a lot of time, right? Amazon did not deliver value on day one. So they delivered, they delivered a lot of goods over a very long period of time before they started, okay, we recognizing Amazon, okay, Amazon is famous for one day delivery, right? So it took a very long time for them to arrive at a value. So one day delivery or hourly delivery, we started hearing in the last 5-6 years, or probably 10 years. But Amazon has been existing from since 2004, maybe even before that, right? So it takes very long time to build a value for your customers, right? Especially in complex systems, in creating complex systems. So you'll have to discover what is more important for your customer, and then that's more important before you start delivering it. And then you start delivering values in iterations, the quickest path, right? Quickest path to your production, or quickest path to your consumers. Your consumer should be very close to your product, so that you get a feedback to your products as soon as possible, and then you start iterating it, do discovery on top of it, and then start delivering things to your customer again. So if I have to probably break this down into probably multiple aspects in terms of value delivery, these are probably 3-4 buckets I can think about, right? What do you do in terms of value delivery? So value discovery, right? The first aspect is a value discovery. You have to identify what makes more sense to your customers, right? It could be both tangible and intangible. Tangible is, like I said, one day delivery, right? So you order a product today, you get it tomorrow. So you see it visibly. Second is intangible, is something like you become very loyal to your customers. Your customers become very loyal to you because of all of the other factors that you're delivering to them, right? So you can always establish some kind of a measurements, right? So how much time that I have delivered my product in one day. So should be improved, because if you look at there are two things that customer will never go away from, because every time you order something, they always want very fast. Because those are some of those metrics you can already establish and then communicate to your customers upfront, right? So communicating all of those things upfront really helps customers a lot, right, in terms of discovering a value. And you deliver it as soon as you start discovering, you start ideating, do MVP, phase one, phase two, you start delivering it against the market fitness and what is the ROI that you're getting, right? And your payback period, all of those things from an organization standpoint, from a customer standpoint also. So what is the customer experience that you're getting from a value delivery? Are they coming back again and using your products? Let's say you're probably bifurcating your product into probably a non-linear market, and then are they coming and heterogeneously approaching you, even if it is a different market, right? So those are the value that you deliver non-linearly. Right now, even if you take any organizations, right, they have a non-linear approach. So they do not, just like Amazon, they right now they run a retail shop as well as they run a cloud shop, right? So those are some non-linear outcomes that everybody is looking at right now. So you cannot exist in an industry for a very long time, because one way or another you're going to get disrupted. So the value that you want to deliver to your customers should not always be on one industry. So you always plant seeds in different places, so that you will never know which seed will grow into no. I just wanted to quote Jeff Bezos here, right? So that's how you create value in exponential propositions to your customers. And then how do you manage those values, right? In terms of the guardrails that you can put. Okay, I can have a guardrail about like 20 to 24-hour window. Let's say any product that you deliver now will probably be delivered in like 24 to 36 hours or something like that. And you put some governance process behind it. You get a feedback from the ground and feedback from your business. And how do you manage uncertainties in most of these cases, in especially complex systems, right? So that is most important in terms of managing value. Say for example, if it is a rain, there is a rain, there is uncertainty, right? So you probably would have never predicted that there's a rain. So understanding the uncertainties, embracing the uncertainties, communicating those properly to your consumers, that because of so and so reasons, or this is delivered late, or you'll probably expect your product in X number of time, X number of days, right? So all of those things, you'll have to embrace uncertainties, especially in complex systems, and communicate to your customers accordingly. So those are some of those aspects that you probably can think through in terms of delivering value, especially in complex systems. So finally, I think I've taken probably 40 minutes, like 45 minutes. So the key takeaways, if I probably wanted to say, is like maybe 4 or 5 items you can think about in terms of delivering complex systems, value in a complex systems. The context and relationships are more important in a complex system. Like I said, there are thousands of dependencies in relationship. Until you identify those relationships, it's extremely difficult to model behaviors as such, right? So like other systems, complicated systems, ideation, discovery, and iteration is a core pillar of delivering value, right? So inside out and outside in view is a must in terms of building a complex system. So you always can take best practices from the industry, from your peers, if they have built something better, and then so that you can accelerate your timeline, right? Finally, uh, with these, you can define what is that you want to deliver to your customer, the value in terms of value, tangible, intangible benefits. You can define it, deliver, and then govern all of these things together. And finally, the most important thing is expect and embrace uncertainties, right? So uncertainties are extremely common in complex systems. So if you discount uncertainties, all of these things will break, and then it is extremely difficult for you to probably deliver value or even probably run your business. So uncertainties are common in complex business. The one who masters uncertainties and have some mitigation plans in place definitely probably are probably I would say have the winning strategies in delivering value to the end consumers, especially when it comes to complex systems. So I'm done with the session, Rohit. So that's all I have for today.
Yeah, thanks for the informative session, Ram. I'm quite fully attentive and for the entire session, and thanks for the making the things very unambiguous, and also even though the systems are very complex and complicated, but you made this simply great to understand. So we have a couple of questions in chat box here. First question from Kishore. We are dealing with the challenges of complex systems now, work from home or remote working. My aggravated situation. You must have also come across with this situation. Though, how did you manage? Did you see any uh, have you used any specific tool for it?
Hey, sorry, I just had to
Okay. Yeah.
remove
Questions.
video because of that things. So,
Okay.
um, so see, work from home. See, this is totally new, right? Like I said, uncertainty, right? So nobody has ever probably existed in an uncertainty like this before. Maybe like Spanish flu was probably an uncertainty like this before, right? So nobody has encountered this kind of an uncertainty now. So we're all learning in this uncertainty. That is most important, right? So how do you have to draw both inside and outside, inside out and outside in view here, right? So I mean, we've been practicing work from home, right? It's not that work from home is something that we are doing it now. So even in a lot of organizations that I've heard, like IBM, a lot of global organizations, I've seen people work from home in their entire career. It was there in pockets. It was not done at this scale. We have never expected work from home at this scale, but yes, we have done work from home before. A lot of consultants work remote places, but we have not done at this scale, right? So that is why it becomes extremely difficult for us to understand. I mean, even when we started work from home in the first lockdown, we were running against each other because nobody understood what it takes to probably deliver things to your customers without disruption, right? Though it is a COVID disruption, but we still have technology in place to deliver things, right? So some of those things we never thought through because that situation never came to us in the first place. So some of it, I would say, probably you will have to learn it through the experience, and some of it probably you can learn from others. Is what I would say.
Yeah, yeah, sure. That's what the empirism. Yeah. And the another questions like on the basis of which parameters we can able to categorize the problems, whether it is complex or complicated or simplex or chaotic. Like, is there any parameters we have?
So, like I said, right? So, complicated systems are something like it is very, I would say, the why they are saying is complex is it's difficult to predict the outcome. Okay, let's say if you are on a program which is like 3-4 years long, even if you're a program sponsor, right? Even your program sponsor or whoever is envisioning that product 3-4 years down the line will never have a clear idea of what is that they want after 3 years, because 3 years is a very long time, right? You will never know where you will pivot, or you will never know, you will probably cancel the program in the probably like 6 months after you probably start the program. Now, I've seen a lot of programs who did not meet the criteria because of market conditions or competition being launching the product in the first place, right, ahead of us, could derail the entire thing, right? So complex systems are like that. It's very difficult to envision, and it is difficult to predict the outcome early in the game. Okay, so when you are met with such scenario, right? So that becomes, then you will realize, okay, you are building something very complex. Say, I'll take you why knowledge work is more complex, right? So imagine a situation. Let's say you are at home. Let's say your dining table chair is broken. Okay, one of the legs is broken, and what you do immediately, you call a carpenter, right? You call a carpenter. Hey, my chair is broken. Why don't you come and fix it? It becomes very easy because it is very easy to envision, right? Or it's very easy to envision a chair. Chair has 4 legs. Okay, one of the leg is broken. I know it's probably like it is because of some X reasons, right? So it's easy to become or easy to envision certain things in a real world, but in a complex world, let's say for example, I probably tell Rohit, hey, Rohit, the defect 1357 is assigned by QA. This function is not working properly. Can you go and fix it? So can you envision? It's very difficult to envision, right? Unless you see for it yourself, understand the systems, the relationship behind it, and then only you can go and address a certain problem in a knowledge-based work. That's why it is very difficult to envision such things rather than a real world, right? That's why complicated systems are very easy to model. But you see things by yourself, right? You see an internal combustion engine, you can see an aircraft carrier, right? You can see a landing gear, you can see a wheelchair, right? All of these things you have already seen it. It's easy to visualize. Things can go wrong. Things go wrong in those components. Okay, okay, you can envision quickly. Okay, these are some of the areas probably it could have gone wrong. But rather when it comes to knowledge work, let's say you can address it by defects, bugs, tech devs. It's difficult to envision, right? So that's where you can understand complex systems and complicated systems. Simple
Yeah,
systems are extremely easy to model, right? So I mean, it's even lower order behavior, right? So it becomes extremely easy for you to probably run all of those simple systems quick and dirty, right? You have standard operating procedure. Let's say your database is full. first time you know, okay, this issue has occurred, okay, database is full, you go and archive older data. You can always build some scripts in the first place, and then you can give it to even an entry level, right? A junior folks say, if this alert comes on that database, you go and do this, right? So you can always model, because there are only so many factors that would influence the database probably size getting full, right? Because you are not archiving things on time. So you build a script, archive maybe like 7 years old data, and then you increase the date in the probably, or increase the table space, or archive data to a separate tape storage, and then keep the database clean. So those are very simple and easy to model, right? So you create a standard operating procedures, give it to somebody. It's very easy. Complex systems, you need to travel the path.
Yeah, understood, Ram. Thank you so much. Ram, I might be your camera is disabled, so we can't see you.
Yes. Yeah,
Can
I
you
am
check
seeing
it?
it because of bandwidth issue. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no issues. Yeah. Thanks for making the questions clear. And also one more question from Kishore. Does Scale Agile framework, SAFe framework, helps in complex system to be agile?
See, personally, I'm not in favor of any frameworks. Okay, like I said, again, I will say context is more important. I have done large programs using Scrum, completely Scrum, not SAFe. Okay, so I've managed a program size of 120 with just like 7 or 8 Scrum teams, right? So we never thought of SAFe. I mean, SAFe was there at the time. I'm not against any frameworks, right? But context is more important. Do you really need a specific set of frameworks for you to probably leverage it? And what is the outcome that you're expecting in terms of implementing any framework in the first place, right? So your context is more important. What is that you wanted to expect out of that framework, right? Will it drive more agility? And why do you think that Scrum is not going to drive more agility than SAFe? So those are some of those things that you'll have to probably think through before you're adopting any framework in the first place. It could be anything, right? So that's why I said always, before start adopting any framework, think about what is that you wanted to achieve with that framework, and then evaluate your needs based on different frameworks available in the market, and adapt the best one which is suitable to your context. So it could be SAFe, it could be Kanban, it could be Scrum, anything. But I would say don't blindly adopt anything. Understand your organization behavior and where is your team standing currently, right? First, your team first ready in the first place to adopt SAFe, because SAFe has a lot of roles, right? So it requires an organization change. Right? It has a release train engineer, it has a value stream mapping, right? All of those things. But are your team and organization first ready in the first place? Right? And then, you should probably have some knowledge about the framework too, right? Before you start adopting those.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Ram. I think we are close to time now. Hi, Nupur. Over to you.
So much, Rohit, for wonderfully facilitating this entire session. And thank you, Ram Kumar, for sharing these wonderful 50 minutes with us and sharing some valuable insights.
Sure.
And thanks to the participants for putting forward some wonderful questions.